Good morning and welcome back to a special edition of the Coming Home to You Sparkcast, the sanctuary that is for soul-led women, leaders, mamas, visionaries, and healers ready to rise fully in their light. This is where we remember what it means to come home to ourselves, beyond the roles, the noise, and the expectations, because coming home to you is not a destination, it's a devotion. In this space where progress matters more than perfection, and every episode is that invitation, and a step towards the journey, a breath of remembrance, and a chance to really truly reconnect with your true self and embrace that unique path unfolding before you. And so now, before we dive in, as we always do, let's join together in our ritual of the one heart, one breath. So wherever you are, take a moment to align, to soften your shoulders, your gaze. Close your eyes if it feels safe to do so. Placing one hand in your heart and the other in your womb, in your stomach. Take a deep breath in here, slow inhale. And then I want you to feel the steadiness of the balance of filling your body and holding it gently for a moment. And as you exhale slowly for 8 counts, I want you to release that into harmony, letting your energy just flow with ease. Again, take a deep breath in. Feel balance, settling in your core, feeling grounded, centered in this moment, steadying your energy. Feel it rooting you. And then I want you to breathe out harmony again and let the soft weaving of this wholeness connect and flow within you. I want you to feel the rhythm of your breath linking us together in this one circle as one heart in this sacred moment. With each inhale and exhale, as you take slow inhales and exhales, we become more present, more unified in this space, more aligned in the intention of this gathering. Take a few seconds here to ground yourself in your intention. How do you want to be held and received and show up in this moment? And one final deep breath. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. Together we have arrived in one breath in harmony and in balance. So sisters, thank you again for being here. Our theme for this month's Sacred Sisterhood panel is, as you guessed it, probably balance and harmony. These are two energies that guide us home to ourselves. Balance invites us to ground and create steadiness, honoring both our needs and our desires. Harmony reminds us that to weave the pieces of life together into rhythm, beauty, and flow. I'm so honored to welcome 4 extraordinary women who embody this devotion in their own unique ways. First up, we have Mel Mason, the clutter expert herself. She is also the author of Freedom from Clutter, Creating Order Out of Chaos and the Deepest Level of Life. Welcome, Mel.
Hello, Margarita. Hello, everyone. Such an honor to be here. Thank you so much for having me and looking forward to this conversation with all these amazing women here.
So grateful to have you. I just got chills on my body. All right. Next, we have beautiful Mayan Tran, co-founder of Your Epic Love and a Love and Alignment Coach. She's helping women and couples release old patterns and co-create extraordinary relationships rooted in passion and purpose. Beautiful work. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor. Excited. So excited to be here.
I can't wait. Oh, next we have Dr. Claudia Molnar, familiar face, I'm sure, for some of you out there. She's the CEO and founder of Clear for Clarity, and she is a trauma-informed empowerment coach, leading women to heal trauma, reclaim clarity, and step into empowered leadership. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me again, Margarita. It's lovely to be back and to share this space with all these wonderful princesses and goddesses, and I'm so looking forward to the next hour or so ahead. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. More chills. Oh my gosh, this I'm already saying like this call is gonna be off the hook. I can already tell. Gwen, you're guys sending that energy already my way. Gwen Geering as another familiar face. She's a transformational mentor for ambitious parents and couples. She's a visionary behind the tantric leadership, guiding parents, entrepreneurs, and couples to reconnect with truth, rebuild intimacy, and thrive in life, love, and leadership. Welcome, Gwen.
Thank you. And thank you for having me again. It's so amazing to be here every time over and over again with all these beautiful women. And it's magical that always happens here. So yes, thank you for having me.
It is such an honor, and I'm grateful for you being yeses here today and being in such giving generosity for the women out there who are on their journey coming home to themselves. And together, we're going to explore how balance and harmony show up in our bodies, our relationships, our work, our leadership, and the home within. So let's begin. Ready? All right, so we start where we always start, the deep-rooted beginning. There's always a moment where the truth of reclaiming your identity and saying enough is enough. So, Mel, the first question is for you, my friend. Um, Mel, your work shows us that clutter is more than just physical. It's emotional, mental, and spiritual too. How does releasing clutter at its roots create balance and harmony? And then how is this shaping your own journey home to yourself?
What a great question. So, for everyone out there, my name is Mel Mason. I'm known as the clutter expert, and I definitely didn't get that name by accident. I practice what I preach, I teach what I've walked myself through. Growing up, I was actually the cluttered mess. So, you couldn't walk in my room. My entire floor was covered, right? So, if you tried to walk in my room when I was a kid, you needed a life insurance policy because you were going to be taking your life in your hands and you're going to break your neck. Um, but what I didn't realize at that point in my life was that the outside, what's going on in your environment, is really just a mirror reflection of what's happening within. And at that point in my life, already at such a young age, I was what I call littered with clutter on the inside. And that happened as a result of experiencing loss, abuse, trauma, all kinds of things at a really early age. And my journey of all of that trauma eventually led me to go live in a residential treatment center for adolescents when I was 15 years old. So I was separated from my family and I was forced to live in a treatment center for a year and a half of my life because of all the experiences I went through. Now, some might be like, oh my gosh, that's so horrible or whatever. But what I will say is that was one of the greatest gifts that I ever got in my life. Because it was while I was living there that I was introduced to the practices that taught me how to eventually be present for my inner clutter, to really be willing to look at all of the unprocessed emotions, the limiting beliefs, the fears, the resentments, the judgments, and all of that stuff that I was carrying. And as a result of being willing to look at that stuff at such a young age, what I found happened was that I went from someone who was completely fine living in that chaos, living in all of that stuff all over my floor. And I'll tell you, it wasn't just stuff. Like I was okay having trash on the floor. I was okay living in that chaos. But as a result of being willing to look, what happened for me was I began to spontaneously and unconsciously, I never thought, I never planned, never scheduled, just started to create order in my life. Things shifted to where I needed to have a place for everything and everything needed to be in its place. So within about a year's time of doing this inner work, now, remember, I was really young, so I hadn't accumulated a lot of stuff yet. So if you've been collecting stuff for years, it's not such an instantaneous quick shift, right? But I went from that cluttered mess to someone who loved having everything in order in about a year's time. And I never put the pieces together, but it wasn't until years later that it all came together and I got the idea to launch my business that I looked back on my life and I was like, well, how the heck did I get to this place where I love creating order out of chaos and I can hold really safe space for people, and let me just launch an organizing business. And it was realizing that it happened from the inside out, not the outside in. When I cleared the clutter on the inside, the outside took care of itself. Absolutely effortlessly. Never once did I have to plan to clean my room. Never once did I think, oh, I should really get organized. Wasn't on my radar. It was completely unconscious. And all of a sudden, I'm just like this kid who has to have every order for everything and everything in its place. And then every job I had going forward required some level of organization. Creating order. I actually, one of my last jobs before I launched my business, I got to create order in a 10,000 square foot warehouse with furniture. Like I ran a furniture delivery and installation company and I got to play Tetris with furniture in this warehouse. I got to play Tetris all day long with furniture and be creating order all day long, right? You know, it was so much fun. But it was that realization that the outside is a mirror of the inside. But what really blew my mind was that I learned that the clutter itself is really just the symptom, right? And when you get rid of the root, there's other manifestations that go away too. Because when people hear the word clutter, and there's probably plenty of people out there right now, they're like, my drawers and closets are great. I don't have clutter. Maybe you're going to relate to some of the other manifestations, because I'm going to tell you, I had them all. They can show up as being addicted to substances, to scrolling on social media. Who scrolls, right? The doom scrolling. We scroll like 2 miles a day, by the way, just so you know, your thumb does like 2 miles a day.
I've never heard it that way.
Carrying extra weight on your body, being too busy. How many people are like, I'm too busy, I don't have enough time. Being overwhelmed, being in unhealthy relationships, being in debt, or the other side of it, maybe you have lots of money, but you have it in so many places you don't know where it is. You don't even know what's going on in your finances, right? So it can be the opposite too. But all of these other manifestations start to shift as well. So I didn't just clear the clutter. I was also a crystal meth addict. I wound up being homeless. I had a lot of things that happened in my life that doing this inner work shifted. I overcame addiction. I got out of toxic relationships. I released the weight. I got out of debt. All these other areas started to shift in my life. And so when I launched my business, the whole premise of what I do in my business is that it's your birthright to thrive in every area of your life. And if you're not in any area, that just means you have some clutter, but it's really the internal clutter. So to have balance and harmony in your life requires that you get to the root of this clutter. Now, how many out there have been born human? We all been born human? Okay, so if you were born human, you have clutter. There's no getting out of it. From 0 to 8, you grew up without a filter and you adopted all kinds of beliefs, some that work really well for you and some that don't, right? That's clutter. Any belief that's limiting you and blocking you, that's clutter. How many have carrying resentments? Somebody, you hear someone's name and all of a sudden you're like, there's that energy. That's clutter, right? How many of you have not faced some of the things that have happened in your life? That's clutter, carrying all that stuff around. So, and just the simple fact that you were born, you came out of a nice, warm, cozy womb into this world, that's a traumatic event. Okay? Being born is a traumatic event. So every single one of us as humans carry this inner clutter. And the true path to freedom is starting from within. When you go within and be able to look at yourself and address your own stuff, the outside shifts. So if you want your partner to change, you want your kids to change, you want your environment to change, you get to shift first. Because when you think about it, there's two ways to look at it. The outside is simply a mirror reflection, right? So if we have a reflection, we can either look at that reflection and then go project it onto everyone else, or we can look at the reflection and we can choose to shift who we are to change that reflection. So if you want true balance and harmony in your life, shift your reflection that you're projecting out into the world.
Mic drop on that one. Wow. Yes, it's so obvious now when you hear it like that, how much we clutter our lives with. Yeah, let's get back to gallery view here. I just loved everything you said. One of the things that stood out the most was you have the birthright to thrive, and that's so true. And I think if anyone's gonna only hear one thing and all of that, like she said so many beautiful things, like just know that you deserve, you are enough, and you matter, and you deserve to thrive, and it's your birthright. So thank you. I'll leave the question for the rest of the panel. Like, how do you personally um, see that clutter, in or out, or impacts balance in your life? Anybody
I
can go
love
popcorn. Okay, go ahead.
every word you said. Like, it is so true. One of my clients called me the detox queen because I come up with detoxing in your physical body to heal, like to create health. But it's when I go there, I go deeper because it's the inner toxic stuff like trauma and limited beliefs and everything that's playing out that is causing the illness, that is causing the disbalance in your life and in your health, in your physical body. So I love every word you said because it's, for me, it's spot on. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, so good. I want to chime in and reflect what you said about the mirror part, right? Like the clutter is not just about the piles. It's not about papers or clothing. It's about what's going on internally, and that's manifesting in your external environment. One of my clients, because I help women attract love, like one of the things that I used to do with them is look at their bedroom, because there are so many clues in our bedrooms that reflect what we believe about love. Margarita's covering her face.
So true. It's so true.
So with this one specific client, she actually had an art piece above her bed, and it was interesting because it wasn't anything related to love. It was this picture of a woman, and she was like in this desolate, like deserty place, and she was alone, she was single, she was like sad. And I was like, "Do you love this art piece?" And she was like, "No." And I'm like, "Why do you have it?" And she was like, "Well, a friend gave it to me and I feel bad. I don't want to let it go." And so, like, who hasn't done that, right? Somebody has given you something that you don't really want to hold on to, but you're like, "Oh, a friend gave it, a family member, my grandmother," and you feel that obligation because you don't want to disappoint someone, right? But isn't it interesting though that like, the very thing that we keep on our walls are often the things that we carry inside? And so this, like what you were saying, Mel, like this picture wasn't just a picture. It wasn't just clutter. It was actually reflecting a part of her that couldn't speak up for herself, or that didn't want to disappoint other people, or that was, fear, like she was in that people pleasing mode. And so when she recognized that, like, oh, you know what? I can actually take this down. Like I do have a voice in how I decorate my home or what I keep in my space, because day in and day out, it was actually reflecting. She had a belief that the other shoe was going to drop. And that's what this picture represented for her, was like, oh my gosh, I could live an amazing life. And at any moment, the other shoe could drop and it could all go away. And so when we look at what things mean and represent to us, and we choose to intentionally put up or take things down, it's reflecting that internal part of us that also has that power, that sovereignty. So love what you were sharing, Mel.
Yeah, I love that, and I can just resonate with everything you said as well. And I think also, mine, what you said about what we display on our walls, and how we can use our space to create those shifts internally as well, and actually surround ourselves with messages, images, and things like that that reflect who we're working towards being, if you like, and creating, if you like, an environmental vision board almost, or creating a reflection of, the environment that you want to embody almost as well. And I think there's so much truth in that. And also, I think all of us have similar ideas, particularly when it comes to very deep rooted, beliefs. And also, you said this 0 to 8 period, these very formative years, and even a little bit more, we're adopting these paradigms, and those paradigms become the clutter, that we start collecting, a bit like, I always think of like Jacob Marley chains, sometimes that, and these are very difficult. And I think very often we don't even notice that this clutter that's around us environmentally is reflective of what we're carrying inside. There's a lot of stuff that we don't see even here around us in our immediate environment. And sometimes we need to go within in order to see what's around us. Yeah, so no, it's beautiful. I loved everything you said. And yeah,
Claudia,
it's such a powerful thing.
Claudia, that piece you said about, using your space as in a vision board, like that is the perfect way to look at our homes, our spaces, because we surround ourselves with that day in and day out. We look at these things subconsciously or not, like it's there, it's reminding us of something. And also like that can change, right? Like what we put up on the walls to represent who we want to step into 5 years ago may not resonate anymore. And it's okay for us to update that. It's okay for us to create a new vision board as well. So I love the whole concept.
Yeah, I love it all. Just like, and even thinking about like hanging on to stuff that you like feel bad about. Like we surround ourselves with stuff that we feel bad about. Like we just hang on to it. And like, why do we do that?
Why do we do that? That's a great question. And one thing that came up while you guys were all sharing is, I've struggled with clutter, if I'm being completely open and honest.
You're
And,
not alone.
I go through phases where I clear it up and it comes back. And what I heard in all of this is because I haven't taken care of the inner clutter and looked at what am I avoiding? Because it's really, I see it and I get overwhelmed, right? And I get anxious. I was like, oh, and then it's easier for me just to kind of ignore it than to deal with it. So I loved what you talked about, like just going in and seeing what your fears are and really facing the unprocessed emotions and any of the judgments. And I think it's crucial there to remind people not to be um, having to be right and wrong about something. Just get curious and look within so that you can do the work. Would you say that worked for you, Mel, when you were in the process of that?
Yeah, and I love that you said it's about getting curious, but the key piece to it all really boils down to willingness. I call it the willingness to look. Because once you're willing to look, that's all it takes. Like if you just simply become willing, you don't need to know what the inner clutter is. You don't need to go on an excavation mission digging up all your trauma. Like just being willing to look and experience your experience as a human being. What emotions are you feeling in the moment? What sensations are you feeling? What are you thinking? What are you smelling? What are you tasting? Literally present moment awareness of your experience will eventually reveal what the inner clutter is in perfect timing for you.
Love that. That's so perfect.
So good. And before we go to the next question, there's something else when we talked about the photos. I remember one time not wanting a certain photograph of this a beautiful image that my husband took of this woman on the beach in Cabo. Like it's gorgeous, but it's her back too. And I was like, what message is that giving? That that like the women in your life are going to give you their back and not like be connected, And so like I started getting more aware about that. And so I love that we presence that in this because it is a visual cue of how you feel or having you stay in that space of feeling that because you're visually surrounding yourself. And so that the vision board and using your space, gold, by the way, loved that. Definitely taking that on as like a literal, well, how do I want my vision board to be inspiring?
So
So
good.
great.
Yeah, I'd want to add one more piece because it's so true what you said about, that artwork of the woman turning her back, right? And is that the message is that the life you want to live? A lot of times when we work with single women, it's like they have the images of a single woman, right? Or a Wonder Woman, or, and that's symbolic of, oh, wow, you're so powerful, you're so independent. And what's the message that you're giving yourself? And I've also seen clients who they tend to attract maybe just like one night stands, and then they have pictures that are of passionate couples. And so there's that passion of like one night stand, but it doesn't have the foundation of a couple who's in love, right? And or if you're a couple who has lost that passion, you could do artwork in your room where it is of a passionate couple. And that's going to create that message for you as well, right? And so it's like, what do you want to create in your life, and use those images to actually help you remind your subconscious mind that this is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm looking for to create. And if it's not working, then take a look at what is in your space. And maybe there are some things that you get to remove and replace.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
Oh my goodness. So, second question, that was also good. Oh my God. So the second question is the rising spark is when we overcome and reframe those, when we go in and figure out what those limiting beliefs are, what those fears are, there's a moment that we reframe and reconnect with the truth of who we are. And Gwen, this question is for you. So through Tantic leadership and your transformational mentorship, you really help ambitious parents and couples reconnect and thrive. So how have moments of imbalance or disharmony in your own life become those invitations to rise and reframe and discover deeper harmony for yourself?
That's an interesting question. First of all, I would love to share about my the way I look at balance and harmony, coming from a tantric view, of course. Because for me, I don't say that balance and harmony doesn't exist, but there is this fine connection between the two of them in terms of, from where I come, it is balance. It is something that is very fragile and something that you that plays outside of you. Like it's just like the balance you see. And as long as you try to seek that balance, you will never get there, because balance is a way of creating separation, because it's two things that you want to fit into the other, like the life the life work balance. Like for me, that's a complete illusion, because or you put work into your life, like you try to fit it in, or you fit your life into your work, but it's not integrated. So that's one thing that I want to point out. And the other thing is, like, harmony is not something you seek or you cause and create. It's something that you are, because it's the masculine, the feminine energy that is coming together as oneness. So it's not like I am a woman but within myself, I have the masculine and the feminine consciousness. Like I can be very strategic, I can be organized, I can plan, I can, like, that's the masculine consciousness. And of course, I can be very intuitive and loving and caring and supporting, which is the way, like, the unconditional love in the consciousness comes. And then, of course, in the energy, I can be very feminine and I can be very masculine, like being in the action and the doing, and being in the feminine energy is like surrendering. And when you bring them all together, that's where actually it all melts, like the consciousness and the energy, which is that's what creates worlds. And when you bring it all together, this is where the harmony is. So when you start to integrate that harmonious part within yourself, then it's not something you get to create, it's something that you are. And the only thing you get to do is to acknowledge that. So when it comes to my life, where I discovered these things in terms of harmony and balance, is that, for example, not everybody knows that, but I am still married, and I am still living with the same man for so many years. And the harmony that we have together as a couple is because we accept each other for what the relationship is. And we come in with an energy and an awareness of serving each other, loving each other, respecting each other within that space. And in the other hand, we came from a very deep connected friendship for 4 years, which was very platonic. Then it transitioned because it was necessary, or we would level up the game, or we would lose the friendship. It was one way or the other, because it had to come. We had to bring it all together, and to find that balance was not one way or the other. We just had to come together and allow what was happening. And we were fearful in losing each other, because we had the assumption that we were bad in relationships back then, right? And then along the way, like, we changed, we transformed, lots of things happened. And at some point we said, like, we know we need something different in a relationship, but that doesn't mean we can still love each other. We can still be a family together. We can still support each other as friends, as we still love each other, but in a completely different way. So our love for each other transformed during the years. And we don't need to have an ugly or a bad divorce or anything. We just found a way of harmony within and with each other, and it balances out naturally, organically, because it's not trying to fit things in a specific way. Like, being married is a concept, and we all have a specific image around that. And when we wanted to try to fit in that image of being a married couple in that way, it didn't work. But still, like, being part of each other's world, of each other's life, was important. So we had to come up with a different way of bringing it all together. So that's one way how it represents in my life, and how I also, with my clients, I inspire them, like, step out the box and see the opportunities that are still there. And don't, like we say in Belgium, we say, gooi het kind met het badwater niet weg. That means don't throw the child away with the shower water.
Yeah, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yes, exactly. I don't know how to. Yeah, now I know, of course. So, but so that's the thing. Like, balance and harmony are very inspirational ways of looking at it, because we don't need to fit in. We really can create alignment. And for me, alignment is bringing the balance that you cause and create outside by integration, and the harmony you create inside, bringing it together. For me, that's alignment. And that's where it all comes down to, because that's being truthful to yourself, truthful with others, and that can be very challenging, but it's liberating. And this is, for me, the golden nugget in dancing with harmony and balance.
So good. So good.
Yes, I think you started off by saying balance in life and work is an illusion. And I was like, right? Because we do struggle and we say all the time, oh, I got to find a way to balance my life with my work. So I really loved how you brought that up is harmony is not something you seek, it's a way of being. It's something that you are. So that was awesome. But I'll open up the question prompt to the panel. And how do you personally transform and balance into strength in your lives?
I just want to pick up. I love this point where you said, we don't have to fit in, and sometimes I think we can just fit out, and it's just so true. And I love that whole concept of, we talk a lot about work-life balance, and it's something that, I think a lot of people get embroiled in. I mean, I can say for myself, I've been through the burnout, tunnel more than once in my life, and when people are going through that tunnel, um, you know, it's their choice whether they run through it or they walk through it, and whether they walk through it blindfolded and feeling their way in the dark, or whether they, focus on the light and move forward. And I think that's a lot to do what you said, and I love that the harmony has to come from within, because when we have harmony within, or then we have balance, and when we have balance, we have stability. And when we have stability, then that first baby step, helps to create the second and the second. And the more steps we take, then the more stable we become. It always reminds me of like a baby giraffe, they're always the ones who, stumble a bit, or a baby deer. But I think that so much of what you said about this is so beautiful as well. That again, these kind of societal images that we try to stuff, and this is also, we try and stuff ourselves into this societal ideal of who we should be and what we should be. And like Man, you're saying as well, as women, we can have it all. We can't have it all. We can have it all. No, we can't have it. Can we have it all? Of course we can. We can have whatever we want, and I think that for me personally was the most empowering shift for me, was that if I can create balance amongst my chaos. So I had this beautiful belief planted in my brain. So my dad was, just like a very chaotic person. He was a graphic designer and everything, but he used to always say, it's fine, it's organized chaos. You tidy something up, and it's like, don't tidy it up, because if you tidy it up, I'm not going to find it. And I was like that my whole life, like, don't touch my desk, it's organized chaos. I know where everything is. And then,
So recognizable.
I know.
yeah.
But do you really?
That's the question. And I realized that for many, many, many years, decades even, my life was organized chaos. And it was, it was a paradigm I was locked into, that it's okay. I am, I have got a qualification in walking through the storm, bring on the storm and I'll get through it, and it wasn't until I actually got to that point of balance when I went, this is clarity. This is organization. Oh, that really was chaos. There was nothing organized about that whatsoever. I was just managing it. And that's why I was going through the burnout tunnel, because I was managing all of that organized chaos. So I love this, like just trying to fit into these. And a lot of that was what you mentioned, Maya. And it was like being a professional woman and a mom, and having a job, having a family, having a life, having pets, having friends, all of that. So I spent many years trying to fit into that mold, and also self-medicating when it didn't work, and then you get the this is what it's like. So thank you for that.
Okay.
Love it.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, imbalance is a data point, right? It's feedback. when I'm feeling something, when I feel like my life is off balance, or there's one area of like that's like overtaking another area and I'm feeling burnt out or I'm feeling exhausted, it's feedback, it's data points that I get to look at. Okay, is this how I want to continue living my life or not? And then I get to decide something gets to shift, or if I don't, I'm just going to keep going down this route. And so, my partner and I, Angus, we run our business together, and there are so many times where we'll go out to dinner and it's like work, 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 because we're talking, because there's a never-ending list of things to do as business owners, right? Especially if you're working with your partner. And so then we got to the point where it was like all about work, and it's like, hold on, let's take a step back. And is this the type of relationship that we want to create together, co-create? Like, no, it's not. Okay, how have we been doing and being? Maybe, overworking, rigid, like just so focused on the outcome. How can we shift our way of being so that now we're creating a different result? Okay, let's be present, let's be connected. And so we've been taking these improv classes, and like I had to sign up for level 2 because level 1 was so much fun. It was freaking scary, but but it was also really fun and challenging and stretchy. And especially as a date night idea, like you've got a built-in date night every week, right? You go to class, you talk about things, you go through exercises together, and now you have something to like not just talk about, but you have skills, new communication skills that you can practice on one another. And so if if you're a couple out there, like that would be a great date night idea to build connection and memories and fun and adventure.
Love that.
So good, so good. I just love, I love when you said how balance is like an illusion, right? We all think we're shooting for this balance, but if you think about a seesaw, right? As soon as you get to level, you're going right back up the other way. There's no such thing as balance, because stasis, if we were static, we would be dead. Right. So we're in this constant movement. And so I love that balance is an illusion. So stop striving for balance, right? But everything is about connecting and finding harmony within you, because when you're at harmony within you, everything else just flows. And for me, being at harmony within myself is being fully connected and present in my relationship with the Lord. When I'm connected with the Lord, He's the creator of it all. And so when I'm fully connected with Him, everything just flows. When I'm trying to struggle and I'm trying to create and I'm trying to fix and I'm trying to do, it's always this effort and this struggle, and there's no harmony inside. That's fear and stress and exhaustion. But when I fully surrender and trust in His plan as His purpose, like everything just starts to come together, and the people show up and the opportunities, and the phone starts ringing. Like I could go do this email campaign to grow my business and do all this work, and then like nothing comes from it. And when I just listen to Him and I rest in trust, the phone starts ringing. Opportunities start showing up. So for me, that harmony, being in that place in harmony, really is about resting and trusting in His love, because all He is love. And from that place, everything else works out.
Yes. So powerful.
So good. I think the key words I heard were surrendering and trusting, and also resting. I think pause is what I also heard come up for me in all of this is pause, reflect, see what's it working, shift, and then trust and surrender that if when you are in alignment and you're not trying to fit in to societal norms, you create harmony, but harmony really starts from you being at peace with it first, is what I heard in all of that. So good. So good, so good. Okay. Oh my gosh. So when we get to the place where we are reframing, oftentimes life hits us. We go on the seesaw, like you were saying, Mel, like we're in the up or the down, and we're always trying to be in the balance. So we're always finding ways to shift. And so that's when sacred rituals and tools come. And and handy in place. And I think, Mel, you mentioned about how you really surrendered to God, and you used probably prayer for him to ground you in these rituals. But this question is for man. And this is all where faith and wellness and inner resilience really takes hold. You, through your work with your epic love, you really guide women and couples to align with truth and co-create extraordinary relationships. What are the practices or energetic shifts that most support balance and harmony, not only in your love life, but across all of life?
That's such a great question. So I'll share a little bit of my story and then I'll give specific practices. For me, I think growing up, I associated harmony and balance with being easygoing, right? With not rocking the boat, with being obedient, especially growing up. And I'm Chinese, my background is Chinese. And so in Chinese culture, obedience and like doing the thing that you're supposed to do is such a big part of being part of the family, right? You put family first. And so as Mel was talking about, like 0 to 8, like that was my programming of, you just go along with everyone else. You go along and you give up your own desires. And that's what I learned without even knowing that I learned it. But what happens is I went from listening to, what my parents would tell me to do to, in my college days, listening to what my older sister would tell me to do, and then getting into a relationship and listening to what my boyfriend would tell me to do. And eventually my ex-husband would tell me to do, right? And over that process, I had lost my voice. I lost myself. And so I think when I think about this question of harmony and balance, for me, it goes back to getting back to who you are and getting to know yourself well and getting to know the truth of who you are and what you stand for, what you value, and what's really important to you. And so if we don't know what we truly need and want to feel fulfilled and happy, how are we going to communicate that to another person? Right? How would someone else support us in creating that and fulfilling that if we don't even know, if we've lost parts of ourselves or our voice? And so, that's one of the things that we teach our clients is to get to know yourself well. And part of that are the stories, the subconscious patterning and beliefs that we have taken on that we don't even know are the underlying, programming for our lives. Because looking back, my marriage was the perfect thing for me, right? We created the perfect dynamic where I kept myself small. I didn't use my voice and he told me what to do, right? And it wasn't like his fault. It was just the perfect dynamic that we created that I stepped into. And so if we don't know that these are some of the things that are going on, we don't look at the root of why we have created that for ourselves, we might think it's the person, right? And then we leave the relationship, we leave the marriage, and then we go into another dynamic where it's the exact same dynamic and we're the common denominator. So part of that knowing ourselves is to do the inner work, is to do the inner excavation of what is happening, what is going on that we keep creating and recreating the experiences. For me, right, from my parents to my sister, why does everyone tell me what to do and why do I go along with it? Well, there was something within me that allowed that programming. It really made sense of the world, like that the programming allowed me to make sense of my world. And so when we talk about knowing yourself, looking at the subconscious patternings and the stories, that's the one piece. The other piece is looking at your desires and your wants. Like once you've regained your voice and really know that it's okay to want what you want and to express that, now the world, is open up, is our oyster, right? The world becomes your oyster. And so the women that we typically work with are the ambitious, driven types, right? They've created all the things that they want for themselves. And at the same time, one thing that we as women get clear on is, are you a career woman or are you a woman with a career? Because there's a distinction. One type of person, you're putting everything else around your career. Career comes first, and everything else, whether it's spirituality, it's family, it's friends, it's relationships, comes after that. And the other type of person is that you are a woman first, and then everything else, right, including your career, comes after that. And if you don't know that for yourself, what your truth is, and there's no right or wrong, like there's no one way is better than the other. It's really what is true for you and what's the life you want to create. If you don't know that for yourself, right, now you're living a life that's not true and authentic to you. But once you figure that out, then we get to be intentional about how do you set your life up so that there is balance around and across all these other areas of life. So one specific thing that we teach our clients is what we call the 3 S's. So the first S stands for solo time, or your self-care time. The second is social time. And the third S is sweetheart time. So each of these different S's represents an area of how do you relate to people and how do you want to design your life. So first solo and self-care time, that's for you to recharge. How do you enjoy, your alone time? Because like I'm naturally very introverted, so solo time is like super easy for me. I'm like, yes, please, I can spend, 2 weeks in my house and not see anyone and I'd be okay. Especially I'm in a relationship, right? Like between Angus and, my alone time, like I'm good. Like I actually really need to force myself. I get to balance that out with some social time. But for other people who might be more of the extroverted, they love spending time with people. We still get to reserve some time for ourselves to do that internal reflection, to do, to dream, to like take that time for ourselves to mute out other people's voices, right? And so that's what the solo time is for you to recharge and reconnect. Then the second S of social time, that's connecting with friends. It's connecting like outside of work, right? These are the fun times, the fun things you get to do with other people and create connection and memories. And then the third time is sweetheart time, which is this is whether you're in a relationship or not, this is time that you get to nurture the relationship. So if you're in a relationship, how do you be intentional about nurturing that time together and creating the love so that it grows rather than atrophies? And if you're single, then how do you devote some time to actually putting yourself out there, whether it's being on dating apps or going out and doing fun things, which is what we are huge proponents of. Like find things that light you up and where there might be people that you want to meet and put yourself in those situations and really just enjoy that time, right? But now you're opening up yourself for opportunities to actually meet people. And so when you have, and there's no set like, oh, it's got to be 35, 33, 33, 33, right? It doesn't have to be like that. Each of our individual mix is going to be unique to us based on what we need, but we get to have some combination of that for us to feel balanced, for us to feel that harmony within ourselves. So I would say that's like the first thing that would be practical and helpful to create balance in our life is the 3 S's. And it might sound simple, but actually putting it in practice takes a little bit of time and effort, right? So one of our clients actually learned about this and started implementing it, and she used color blocking on her calendar. And so not super rigid, but she would have different color for like Mondays, I'm going to do this, self-time, Tuesday, Wednesday, etc. And so she got into a rhythm knowing for herself, like, I really need at least 2 days a week for myself. And so she knew that well about herself. And once she started dating and she was dating somebody seriously, he was super into her and she was really excited. And he was like, I want to spend every single night with you. And she was like, hold on, I know this about myself that I actually need to take time for not just me, but also for my friends. And so she was like, I could do like 2 nights a week, and she was able to communicate that really clearly and confidently because she had done that inner work within herself to get clear on what she needed. And now it's not this like letting her boundaries get run over because she wasn't clear. Now she's able to communicate it clearly to the other person, and he respected it because she knew what she wanted and he wanted to support her, even though, ideally for him, he would have wanted to spend all his time with her. So that's, and from a very practical standpoint, like if we put the time in to actually focus on what we want and get clear on that, now we're able to support other people in supporting us to get what we want. So I would say that's the first thing. And then the other thing that comes to mind is, for me as a recovering people pleaser, I would say that I usually say yes more often than no. And I would just, if someone were to, whether it's inviting me out to doing something or can you help me with something? I'm like, sure, yes. And then later on, like, wait, hold on. My calendar actually is not going to allow that, or it's going to put a lot of stress on me. But it goes back to, do I know myself well? Okay, if I know myself well as somebody who tends to over schedule or overgive or over say yes, then I get to almost do the opposite. Like I get to stretch myself to be somebody who then says no first. Let me check my schedule. Let me get back to you. And then, I'll let you know. Versus if you're someone kind of more on the other side where you tend to say no, or you're very clear about what you want or don't want, and you're more rigid about that, then what's another way that you can soften into, actually considering saying yes first versus saying no, right? And so it goes back to knowing who we are and knowing like what is our patterning and does it support us, and can we communicate that with other people?
Oh my
So
God,
good.
so amazing. Uh, and it kind of tied into something you said about looking at your desires and wants, and then being able to articulate and know that it's okay to ask for them. I think for me as a woman, and I think it ties back to what Claudia even said earlier about like, can we have everything? Yes, I can. No, I can't. But it's like sometimes it's even forgetting what it is that you want because you lost that part of you. I also struggled with when I became a mother, kind of losing myself in that role. And then it was like, who's Margarita? What is she even like anymore? Like, who is she? And so it's so great that you said that. And the three S's are amazing. And it's how beautiful that you supported your client with her knowing herself so much and what she needed, that she was able to even articulate that in a way that it landed and it was heard and respected. And I think for me, I struggled. Being a no because I was afraid of hurting people's feelings, losing a friendship or a connection. And I think that's where we get stuck. So I loved everything that you said about like kind of just taking the time and really getting to know yourself. That's really stood out the most to me, is like really getting to know yourself and kind of falling in love with yourself all over again, right? So that you can really step into those needs and desires. Thank you.
100%.
I'll open it up to the panel now. Yeah, so what tools bring you back to center in your relationships and beyond?
Well, for me, what landed the most was the clarity. Because when you have clarity, you can be truthful to yourself. When you have clarity on your boundaries, on your values, on your standards, on your likes and dislikes, and you can own them, then you can also attract equalness. Like you can attract a man or a woman, whatever, that is aligned with that. Because if you are not clear on what it is you need and what you want to change, or whatever clarity you need in being who you are authentically, in sharing your values and sharing your beingness with somebody, then there is most likely you will attract a personality that is mirroring what is misaligned in you. So instead of looking for that guy or looking for that woman that gets to complete you, you get to complete yourself in order to attract the right person that aligns with your standards, your values, your choices, your dislikes, your whatever it is that you want to point out. Otherwise, you will never attract that person. You will always keep attracting the things that are misaligned within yourself. And then it comes back to that harmony within yourself, where you know yourself in and out. And it doesn't mean you don't have blind spots. It doesn't mean there is an openness or another level of growth, No, but in that specific moment where you are now and you have done the work, and sure, years to come, you will have another years to do the work, right? But as long as you are aware of what you are, who you are in this specific moment, at least you can attract what resonates. And that's the thing that for me stood out the most in having that clarity to speak your own truth and use your voice so other people can resonate with you. If you say yes when you think it's no, guess what you attract? So I love the way you shared, Mayan, in like how you learned to be not to be who you are and discovering within relationships with other people who you are. And that's so magical. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I love everything you said, man. Thank you so much. And yeah, the whole like getting clear about who you are and what you want first, everything coming from within, right? The whole theme, I think, is everything gets to start from within, like nothing outside. There's nothing outside of you. Everything needs to start from within you and getting clear. And for me, with that starting within, again, like Margarita said, is for me, it's really the tools that work for me is being in communion with the Lord every day, right? If I'm in connection with him and from that place of center, then I'm grounded, I'm clear, and I'm able to be present in my relationships and show up in the way that he's called me to show up in my life. And it's being true to myself when I'm in connection with him. And I think the key too is remembering who we are, like truly getting who we are, our true identity as, daughters of God, like we're daughters of the Most High King, right? Like when we really get our identity of who we are and we really let that sink in, like we think we need to go search for identity. We need to find who we are. Like we already have an identity. There's nothing to go search for. It is who we are already. And it's really anchoring in that, in who we truly are. And we get so far away from that. We think our identity is something outside of ourselves. We think we're looking for stuff outside of us, but everything comes from our relationship with God and who we truly are and who he's called us to be. And when we anchor in that, everything else starts to flow like that. Just like I was saying, when I'm connected to him, then everything starts to open up and I remember who I am and I don't have like all of the limiting hangups and all the things and all of the limiting beliefs that get in the way. Like he just wipes them out. We don't have to go do this like digging process and facing, confronting, removing all this stuff. Like he just like wipes it away when we become aware of it and he helps us reveal it. But it comes from really anchoring in him. Like the biggest tool for me is staying anchored in my relationship with him and truly knowing who I am. And then the rest falls into place because the outside is just the mirror, right? So if I'm not anchored in who I truly am, if I'm in a false identity, then I'm creating falsity in my world. I'm attracting people that aren't in alignment with me. I'm attracting situations that aren't in alignment with me. But when I'm in alignment with who I truly am and believing and trusting that that's my identity, not going to search for it, everything else just comes effortlessly.
Absolutely.
That's so strong. And that right really brings me to the I am prayer as well. And that I am, and I'm not my mind, I'm not my body, I'm not my emotions, I am. And I am what I am. And life happens when I am, and only when I am. And I think that's just such an amazing concept. And I love the three S's, Maya, and thank you so much for that. And it's so when you mentioned sweetheart time, the first thing that came into mind was because I also talk about this. So one thing, when people are um going through a difficult time, whether that's grief, whether that's working through trauma, whether that's, moving through burnout or anything, those levels of self-confidence tend to plummet, and overwhelm, overtakes basically. And this sweetheart time, the first thing I often say is take yourself out for coffee, take yourself out on a date night, get dressed up, put on your finery, put on your face if you wear one or not, do your hair, whatever, but take yourself out, date yourself, and I think because this also comes back to, I always love how our conversations align, that then you start recognizing what you like because you've got no one to interfere with that decision. It's like, where do I want to go? I want to go here. And there's none of, do you want to go there? No, why don't we go? There's none of that. It's like, I want to go there. Good. I'm going there then. Now I want, coffee and cake. I'm going for coffee and cake. Now I want, and I think that's so powerful. I'm going out for dinner tonight. What do I fancy eating? No discussion. And then I start recognizing, what do I like? What do I not like? Where are the places I find myself going to regularly? Where am I drawn to? And who do I notice around me? Like, are there other people that are also regularly in the places where I am regularly? It's like you said, finding a common interest. But if you haven't got anyone to find that common interest with, you can create that common interest, and then obviously the next step comes in, uh, coming face to face and meeting and connecting with those people. But then it's exactly the same as Mel meant with the telephone call. It's like once you get to that place and you're confidently in that, this is my coffee shop, this is my favorite restaurant, and you're in that energy, and you're filled with your own love and gratitude for being in that place, and you feel good because you're there on your own. And it's a very, very empowering thing, I think, particularly for women, but I also know for men as well, it's not something that they're always comfortable doing. And you feel good in that place and you feel proud of yourself for being there. You attract those other people who also feel good about being there. And I think that these are just such, powerful things to do. They're little, but they're huge at the same time, and yeah, and if you don't spend time alone, I mean, it was something I was going to talk to when we come to my questions, but if we don't spend time alone, how on earth do we ever find out who we are and what we like and what we don't like? And, we can never communicate it if we don't know. It's like, you know. So
So true.
I love this, all of these things that you said, well, that everybody says, but and I love this SSS. I really love that. Very
It's so
important.
true. I think we get, for me, I hear often how it's hard to be alone, like going to a movie by yourself. Oh no, what are people going to think? Going to dinner by yourself. Oh, what are people going to think? So I love that you presence that, Claudia, because yeah, we get to date ourselves and learn and fall in love with the things that you liked doing. And if you ever feel stuck in remembering what that is, what did your younger version of you do that you loved passionately, that you just engrossed yourself in all the time, and start there. That's a good way to start. But
Yeah.
everything that was shared is so good.
I think for
All
me
right.
personally, it came also from a place of when I travel a lot to events, and people would say, "Oh, it's so nice because you travel so much." And then I would be like, "Yeah, but I don't really see very much. I see hotels and I see airport or whatever." And then I realized because I don't go out and I don't want to go out on my own, so I'll eat dinner in the hotel alone because I don't want to. And then it was, okay, come on, this is, no, 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 no more. Nope, out, go explore. Oh, and then go. And it's those baby steps, it's one step. And when you take that one step, it's liberating. That one step, first step is always the hardest. It's the first dive, isn't it, off the high board? Yeah.
Yeah, I think Mel said it earlier too. It's usually, and they get easier. It's that first step can be a little daunting because there's full of unknowing, and it's outside our comfort zone. It's outside of the protection prison that we put ourselves in, to protect ourselves from the unknown fears out there. The made up fear, the made up dangers that we put on ourselves. And it's so
Yeah.
true. So good.
I want to add one more thing. it can be easy to, Claudia, 'cause I can definitely relate to what you just said of like, oh, let me just stay in my hotel room, right? And let me just do this alone thing. It can be so easy to stay maybe on one end of the spectrum or the other end where it's like, oh, I'm always with my partner. I'm always, I love spending time together. And there's benefits to both. If we don't, like you said, if we don't spend time by ourselves, how will we know who we are, what we like, and reconnect with that? And at the same time, when we're in relationship, that's what creates opportunities for growth, because now our partner can mirror things back to us or push those trigger points or the buttons or what we call landmines, like that I've planted when I was a kid, that this was going to be triggering for me, and you just inadvertently stepped on it, and now I'm triggered, and now emotions are going. And it wouldn't have happened had it not been, had we not been in relationship with each other. So I think the importance of both is paramount. And I think sometimes if you've been single for too long, it can be so comfortable to stay there and be like, oh, I'm good, I don't actually need a relationship. But now we're missing out on the opportunity for growth and fulfillment and love and all of that. And at the same time, if you're so entrenched in your relationship, you can also miss out on the opportunities of reconnecting with yourself and your truth. So both of those are really important.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I definitely have to jump in on this. Like, this is so good right now because,
Yes.
when you're talking about like being triggered, right, by someone in your life, like we don't get triggered unless there's something in us that we're seeing in the other person, because the outside is the mirror. And so that's the opportunity you were talking about for us to, when we're in a relationship, we get to have those opportunities. And I like to use the word activated instead of triggered, because trigger is like a bomb going off, but activated is like, ooh, there's something in me that is in here that I get to look at. And then when I look at the reflection and I shift, that person who's doing that thing, whatever it is, no longer activates me. It's magic how it happens.
I like that.
It's so true. And it goes back to like when you shift, everyone around you shifts.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, like I also can lean into that part of sweetheart time, not creating that space and going out there, putting myself out there as people see me always like go energy, like lots of energy, right? But eventually, I am a very introvert person. It doesn't look like that, but I am. If I can, I hide myself. So I really can relate to that in terms of taking care of that and bringing balance in. I love so much to be with myself. Ooh, just me, myself, and I. I love that so much. And I do love of go out and have fun with people, but it doesn't need to be that much. So I can really recognize that in what you were sharing, man, about just I can if I have Angus and just me and that's it. I can totally relate to that. I have my family, I have my chit chat with my friends, and I don't need more of that. But of course, putting yourself out there and getting out of your comfort zone is required when you don't want to lose out on the things that also are so important. And you can say, oh, I'm totally fine being alone. I love to be alone. I don't need a man or I don't need a woman in my life. But if you are truly honest, it's not about needing it, choosing it.
Yeah.
And it's not that you need a man. As long as you need a man, you are in a codependent relationship, and that's not the place where you want to be.
Yeah.
So, and when you are convinced you don't need a man and therefore don't have a man, then there is something wrong. So, yeah, I totally relate to that. Thank you for sharing that.
I think some of the greatest extroverts are closet introverts. I think,
Yeah.
because it takes a lot of energy to be an extrovert, and I think most most extroverts that I know, I'm the same. I need my me time. I need my alone time. I need time to come back to myself. I need time to recalibrate. I need time to ground and do my daily practice. And it's called practice because it's ongoing, lifelong. You know, I don't I don't see it necessarily as doing the work, but the work never stops because when you get to one level,
It's
you
life.
need to maintain that level, or you want to raise your vibration even higher, or you need to maintain your vibration at that level, and your vibration dips and it gets pulled down. So it's daily practice, and I try not to use the word work because I think for a lot of people it has a negative connotation, but I truly believe that a lot of people who are seemingly extrovert um, really value time spent within, and I often also think that introverts somehow has a negative connotation in many societies. But what do we really mean when we talk about being introvert? We're going within, we're spending time within ourselves, within ourselves. We can't go within if we don't spend time with ourselves. And that best time is often spent in silence as well, and taking that time out. And, when you hit that point of overwhelm, and that overwhelm can come from being at a party with many people who all want your attention or want to talk to you, or kids parties where all the kids want an ice, or whatever. That overwhelm comes, and the best way to overcome that, or to continue with your event or situation, is to just take a momentary step back and walk away, and just even just 5 minutes, sit in the bathroom or hide behind a tree, just and spend time alone. And I think people even underestimate those 2 minutes of alone time, of how powerful they are, because we often don't realize how much energy it takes to be on all the time, you know? So,
I love this
Yes.
conversation about introvert and extroverts. And I think Simon Sinek was the one who described it this way, where it's about energy, right? And so an introvert will wake up with 5 tokens, and every interaction that you have with somebody, you're giving them a token. And so by the end of the day, you might be out of tokens. Whereas extroverts wake up with no tokens, and every interaction they get a token from somebody, and that feeds them. And so at the end of the day, they're like, oh my gosh, amazing, and they're full of energy because of the interaction. So it's really, does the interaction fuel you or does it drain you? And if we goes back to, do we know ourselves? Like if we know ourselves to be this way, then we can take care of ourselves and nourish ourselves in the way that we need to. And at the same time, not use it as a label, right? Not be like, oh, well, I'm an introvert, so I'm just going to stay in my house all day, but see it as an opportunity for growth and expansion as well. So there's, again, goes back to balance.
yeah, because there's a fine line between, spending time alone and locking yourself away. So it's where your consciousness sits with that, and how you're purposeful with. Is it purposeful time alone, or yeah, when we build these wonderful walls of protection, I think we're all wonderful masons. We forget that we're also keeping out all the good, that we're also creating barriers and not boundaries. Boundaries are good, barriers
Yeah.
is a very different thing, and those walls of protection and those fortresses that we love to build and then sit in our ivory towers, and then we forget that, okay, these are massive, massive barriers as well. So fine lines.
Fine lines. And I love it. Definitely what I keep hearing is definitely balance. And I love that visual, Mayan, that you shared about the introvert having tokens and the extrovert getting tokens, giving and then getting. And as an overt extrovert, I'd like to say, like, I've learned to ground myself, because I think it was draining me, giving myself without giving myself to me. I was giving myself to everyone, but not giving myself to me. And I think it was draining. And I was starting to get resentful because it's like, when is it me turn? And so when I chose to be responsible for that, for me, for my self-care, for that introverted moment, to go within the self-care, whatever it is, could see that I could show up powerfully and in my true light, and show up for people in a way that I hadn't before because I was giving and not taking. So that's great. So good. So we touched a little bit about like community and importance of spending time. So that one of the S's, right, was social time and then sweetheart time. And I also liked how Claudia, you talked about sweetheart time dating yourself. That was so good. But we find that community is really the bridge that can really support us in our journey. And belonging and inclusion is so important, so that we can show up powerfully. And it is very impactful having a community. So Claudia, this next question is for you. As a trauma-informed empowerment coach and a CEO of the Clear for Clarity, what have you witnessed? Actually, you've witnessed how personal healing ripples outward. So how does cultivating balance and harmony within ourselves impact how we belong and connect and lead with others in the world?
Okay, thank you. And this is again another stunning question. And now I kind of feel at the, at the end of not the end, but the next chain, that link of the chain, that so many things on this have already been spoken about. And I think community is a big key word here as well, because that, it's all about a sense of belonging. And I think that when we have balance and we have harmony, we can belong anywhere, and we do belong everywhere, because we end up making better choices about who we want to be with and where we want to be. And this kind of comes back again to what's been discussed earlier in terms of, the external being a reflection of the internal, and then who do we attract? And we attract people who align with the frequency that we're on at the moment. And as someone who works with energy on a daily basis, it's this whole sense of protecting one's energy and maintaining your frequency and recognizing where your frequency is, and checking in with yourselves, and doing this check-in on a, I'm a big advocate for this. I do it regularly, hourly, even at times, where I just check in. Okay, so where am I with this? Do I need to walk away and take 5 minutes? Do I need to stop? Because quite often when we get caught up in the turmoil of everything, and we're like, I just need to get this finished, or I just need to get there, I need to actually, we become less and less productive. And actually it's much more beneficial to just stop and walk away. And that walking away is also the same as if you don't feel like you belong somewhere, there's a reason for that. There's a reason that you feel like you don't belong, because maybe you've put yourself in a situation where you're surrounded by people who are not on your frequency. These are not people who are in alignment with you. And there are times when we get to make that choice, and there are times when we don't. So in a workplace, for example, perhaps it's more difficult to make that choice. Or it's more difficult to change our environment, change our community. But also we find that, it's coming back to what Gwen was talking about earlier, that I think all of us have touched on this, that, when we get to know ourselves and our confidence improves and we feel good and we find our voice, we've come back to ourselves, people drop off, people disappear from our lives. And, I know for myself, I went through 18 months at one point in my life where 4 key people disappeared in my life, and it was horrible. And it took some time for me to recognize that these people had to go. These people are no longer where I am. These people actually no longer align with who I am and where I am. And that where can be on a life point, a relationship point. It can be, in your career, in your relationships, intimate relationships or familiar relationships. And it takes time to recognize that, this disappearance is often a gift, but it's also something that hurts and it causes a lot of pain. And particularly as ghosting is very fashionable now, there's a big difference between someone ghosting you and someone moving away gently from your life, and I think that when we're in harmony with ourselves and when we have that inner balance, or when we're in harmony with our community or our surroundings, then we're in a better place of being discerning. We make better choices. We're in a better place of acceptance. And I think this goes a lot with, I think we've talked a lot about surrendering, and with surrendering comes acceptance. But then there's, the shadow side of acceptance as well, which is, accept it is what it is, and that's a different kind of acceptance. It is what it is. I have no control. I have no power, So there's that level of acceptance, and that other level of acceptance of, okay, let me just really sit with this for a moment. And again, here comes the taking time out and sitting with it. And okay, let me really think about this situation. Let me really think about, had I stayed in this relationship with this person, on whatever level it would be, what would the benefits to me be? Where would we have gone with this relationship? How comfortable would we have remained in this relationship? Mm-hmm. So I think that, this whole question of belonging and connection and community is very, very important, especially when we talk about balance, and when we find that balance within. It really means that we can make better choices, and I think that's one of the fundamental things. And one of the things I talk a lot about with clients is where our mind then comes in and sabotages a lot of what we do. And we hear people talk about silly mind, monkey mind, but our mind gets in the way quite often. And again, we have to take a step back and we have to sit in silence. It's one of my daily practices to sit in silence, to again decide, like, is this my mind getting in the way? Is this my mind telling me something again that is going against my gut? We talk about, the head and the heart, often battling with one another. I think particularly when someone's going through a very difficult time, and particularly going through the process of grieving, which comes in many phases as well, and there are so many different elements to it as well, and also trying to find the roots of trauma and the roots of these beliefs. I think we've all talked about them today. All of the tools that have been mentioned today are hugely powerful. And my top tips are always going to be stop what you're doing, take a step back, come back to yourself, breathe. If you haven't got time to spend time breathing, those 2 minutes, this is a perfect place to start, and go within and spend that time within. And I think another thing is that when we find ourselves with groups of friends and people that we love dearly, but they're no longer aligned with where we are, like I have a very dear friend. I love her very much. She's not having the easiest time of it at the moment. So quite often when we're together, I get a lot of negativity from her, not directed at me, but so then I have to know, okay, well, how can I protect my energy? How can I protect myself from this, that I don't absorb all of that? And how can I be with her? And the answer is because I can be with her from a place of love and compassion. And that doesn't happen if you don't have that balance within, or that harmony to enable yourself to do that. And I know this, how it also transcends. You talk about this, rippling effect into the workplace. If you're, I think particularly if you're a woman and you're working with in a male-dominated environment, particularly in leadership, where I've often been the only woman in management with a lot of men. If you if you find yourself in a situation of conflict, I mean, the first thing I'll always say to anyone, and I do the same thing myself, is like, again, stop. Okay, is this really about me? Is this me? This is your landmine. This is the trigger. This is the, sorry, Mel, I can't remember what you, activation, point, have I really done something wrong? And this is the first thing we do. We question ourselves. We judge ourselves. It's all about me. It's not. It's about them. And this again, it takes practice and a level of acceptance of this. But if you can just stop and ask this question, it gives you that grace point to respond and not react. And if we can respond and not react, then maybe we can detonate that mine a little bit, or detonate that situation, or escalate, I don't know, or de-escalate, sorry, not detonate, we're blowing it up, sorry. It's evening here. And I think these are just fundamental things that whenever we meet resistance in any situation, the answer is always going to be, come back to yourself and stop and just surrender and accept and trust. I mean, this is another thing. And for me as well, I've been through, I mentioned my burnout tunnels. I've been through a few of them. I've been on my own healing journey. I also had a very abusive upbringing, and I found myself in a lot of abusive relationships. And you mentioned people pleasing, etc. And usually it takes a few aha moments, but you have to recognize those aha moments, and you have to see those aha moments. And sometimes you need someone to help you, which is why we are all here serving those people that need our help in recognizing those aha moments. But they're all around us, and that's why we have to have our own connections, as Mal mentioned. We are children of the light. We are whatever you believe in, God, divine, whatever your particular cultural or religious beliefs are as well. We are all children of the light, and we are all connected. And if we can remain connected, we remain grounded, and then we have a much better chance of finding the balance. And I love this, Gwen, and I think I'm going to take this with me for the rest of my life. This, that the harmony is external, and I so hear you with that. And maybe we stop trying to fit our square pegs into all of these round holes, or round pegs into square holes, whichever ones we're fighting for. So, yeah.
So good.
So good.
Oh, I think respond instead of react. Yes, when you're in balance and in harmony with yourself, you don't come from a reactionary space. You really you are able to pause in that moment.
Yeah.
And then I loved your invitation to ask yourself, is this really about me? And I must confess, one of the things that's really supporting me in my relationship is when there's a challenging moment, because life happens to all of us. I walk away and I'm like, it's not about me, it's not about me, it's not about me. And I chant that, and it's really supporting me so that I can come back and go, and be loving and empathetic and compassionate and show up for the person. And it's
Yeah.
helped maintain the bond and the connection in the relationship. So thank you for sharing that. I'll open it up to the panel.
Yes. Yeah, so I will
Go.
jump in then.
Yes.
What I love the most is that stop point in community when you are connecting with people and you allow yourself to stop. And what connects with me in that area is that since I am an introvert and I go out, I love people. I'm a promoter, so I love people. But when I connect with people, I always am aware of my circles. And I learned that pretty young, in my early 20s, I learned that because I always compare it with a dart. When you have an arrow and then there is this dart, when you are very close, it's most likely when somebody is throwing something, intentional or not intentional. I'm not talking about that, but just the one is, and it is close, and it's your the red dot in the middle is your
The
heart.
bullseye.
Yeah, the bonsai. So when they are very close, they can hit it like pinpoint directly into your heart. But when they are distanced, the further they are, most likely they will not throw and hit your heart. So, and with that part, I always organize my people. Who are the first circle that I have is my circle. Nobody enters that circle. It's my circle. It's my bubble where I am just connecting, stop, and just me, myself, and I. And then the second circle is my power circle. This is the circle where I allow people that are accepting me, support me.
Accepting you.
Yes, for who I am. And they value me, they see me, they hear me, they listen to me, they inspire me, they support me towards my vision. And most likely, these are not the people you love the most. Sometimes it is like in May and in Angus' situation, it is, but in a lot of family or circles you are surrounding yourself with, it's not like that. So you get to be very conscious in who you allow in that power circle. Who are the people? And then in that power circle, you also have people who are closer to your me circle or way closer to the next circle, which is your family and friends circle. So it doesn't mean that your parents or your sister, your brother, or whatever can be in that power circle. But often it is not because they care about you. They are afraid you are making wrong choices. They know you from the past. They have tension on situations, on the memories and everything. So they just thinking like they don't see you in your power. They see all your mistakes. When they are in that family friends circle, they can be close to your power circle or they can be further away to the next circle. And that next circle is a network of people that you are not close with, but you are connected with for some reason. And then you have the circle beyond, like the people you want to learn to know, the people you want to have in your power circle, the people you want to connect with or be inspired with or whatever. And then out of there are people you never want to connect with. Like you don't never want to know. You don't want to meet them because the reality between these people and yours is miles away and there is no resonance at all. So you just don't allow them in one of the circles you choose. And this is something for me that helped me along the way in organizing the people and choosing to whom I'm giving my energy to,
Mm-hmm.
whom I'm allowing in my heart space. And I share my deepest secrets with. Like I choose because I was when I was younger, I was an open book. I just told everything to everybody that came along and asked me, how are you doing? And
True
I was so
extrovert.
naive. I was very naive because I was always thinking that everybody was like me. When I tell something to somebody, they shut their mouth and they don't share it with with anybody else. But that's not the case. So and for that I also like Mayan, she has three S's. I have three C's, which is clarity, choice, and that came with you. Like you shared, Claudia, you shared like when you stop, you can make choices.
Yeah.
That's so powerful. When you stop, you can make choices. That's like, that's the easiest thing you can do in your life when you're stuck, when you
Mm-hmm.
feel frustrated, when you feel overwhelmed, when you feel fear, or with any disempowering emotion you experience. That's so powerful. Clarity, choice, and then because of these choices, you know where to commit to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's like when Mayan was talking about the clarity and about the trust and you were talking about like the connection and the stop moment and making choices. The one thing that jumped into my mind is like, yeah, when you bring this together, it's just like this is where you commit yourself to. You can commit yourself to
Mm-hmm.
yourself. You choose to commit to whom you're putting your energy out, with who you connect, with the people who are just business relationships, and what type of business relationships you want. What clients do you want? Who are the clients that you want to like pour into
Mm-hmm.
because they
But I
align
think
with you?
also, yeah, when you talk about this energy, I think it's so, so true. And when you talk about allowing people into your heart space and also who you share your energy with, but that also comes with thoughts. So often, you know, if there are people who've lost people, and for whatever, whether it's through circumstance or relationship, and ghosting. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that ghosting causes a lot of grief in the person that's been ghosted. I mean, like deep rooted grief, and then people don't even understand, why am I grieving? This person didn't die, but sometimes it can be like a divorce or the end of an affair or something.
Yeah, the
um
abandonment
it's
wound.
also about your thoughts, the overthinking that happens,
Yes.
that and that's also sharing energy with someone because you remain connected with them. And sometimes the greatest way of connecting with yourself is through allowing yourself to disconnect from other people. So I think
Absolutely.
that's so I like this concept of the circles, but yeah, hopefully if we're doing it all right, we're not going to attract those people from those outer circles anyway.
But Mel Robbins, she has a saying, and she says, people come in your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And when you
Yeah.
know the concept, then that grief around when people ghost you shifts the drift. Because this is where you
Yeah.
accept, you know it's normal. It happens in
Mm-hmm.
life. Like people come and go, and some people they just come for a little moment just to share something with you so you can go to your next level. And for some people, they stay for the rest of your life. And when she shared that with me, it landed. And the pain that I
Mm.
had of people who left me, ghosted me, disconnected from me, and I was actually bypassing the reality of it because when you see a relationship for something that it is not, the other person is mirroring the reality of the
Mm.
relationship, and you can resist it or accept it.
Yeah. This is Mel's internal clutter, I think, that we're talking
Yeah,
about here as well.
absolutely.
Yeah, because if we've got all that internal clutter, we don't have the balance, we don't have the equilibrium to deal with that, and then it becomes grief, and you're always going to slip into an element of grief anyway when something like that happens, because you have to allow yourself to grieve a relationship, grieve a friendship. You have to give yourself space to grieve, when a lot of people don't allow themselves through that process, and that's a lot of the work I do is helping people to allow themselves into that process. And when they don't, then come the scars, sorry, and the trauma that comes in. And and I think if you don't have that inner balance, it's very hard to recognize this. I love this. These are this I'm taking internal mess, internal clutter as well. These are my takeaways today. The 3 S's: internal clutter and the circles. Beautiful.
So good. And that unprocessed grief, right? If you don't allow yourself to grieve, that's what becomes the inner clutter, right? It gets stuck because emotions are simply energy in motion.
Oh, yeah.
Meaning they need to stay in motion. It's when we stop them and we resist them that they get stuck. And because they're stuck, we need the universe. God is great. He gave us this mirror reflection so we could do our own work, so we can release what's stuck. So then it has to show up outside of ourselves in some way, whether it's in someone else or it's in our environment or it shows up in our body as illness and sickness. It has to show up outside of ourselves so that we can heal, right? But if we would just bypass that whole resistance and just like stop, and it keeps coming back to that stopping, right? Stopping, resting, going within, being connected to who you are, the truth of who you are, that shifts how you show up. And so for me, the way that shows up is, I used to come from a place where everything is happening to me and life is so horrible and I have no responsibility in all of it. And now I have a choice in every moment how I want to respond to situations. And that's the truth, is we can either respond, which is from a place of being responsible, or we can react, which is always from a place of victim. Life is happening to me. This is happening to me. And when we're seeing something in somebody else, like if we get activated by it, we have that choice to be a victim and blame the other person and point out their stuff, or we can do our own work, right? And then when somebody's pointing the finger at you and you're not getting activated, that's an opportunity for you to support them and shift them, because it's not about you, right? It's actually really never about you when somebody's pointing the finger at you. And that's where true freedom really comes from, is realizing that when anybody's ever pointing the finger at you, it's never about you. It's always about what they get to shift. The only thing that's about you is if you get activated by it. If you've got energy around it, great, then you got some work to do. But if you have no energy and I go, what? This is coming out of left field, you get to help them shift, right? It's like if I called you a green frog, it's not going to bother you, right? Because you're not a green frog. But if I called you something that resonated and you were like, then you
although if you feed me after midnight, you never know.
I was gonna say, it depends on how old you are. I think an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old might get offended.
But I love what you mentioned about resting, because this is something that my partner and I do, and we rest together. So actually, it's not just about sweetheart, and we rest together, and it's like do nothing, read, sit in silence together, alone, or alone together, whichever way you want to. And I think that's another thing as well, that there's a big difference as well between, resting and relaxing, or just stopping and resting. Rest is also incredibly important. And I don't know, Mayan, what you say. I'm really interested. Resting together. So having me time together, if you know what I mean. Like, I'm doing my thing, he's doing his thing, but we're in the same room. So we're still connected, but we're disconnectedly connected. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, you're still in each other's sphere, you're still in each other's energy fields, but you're kind of
Hmm.
independent at the same time, right? But you're
Hmm.
energetically, it feels like you're supporting one another to do their own
Hmm.
thing, even though you're not interacting. But I think on an energetic level, you are interacting, right? Or
Yeah.
so yeah, I love that. I love the intentionality. Like that's what I'm hearing is being intentional with your relationships, being intentional with who you let in your inner circle, your power circle, as Gwen calls it, and knowing whether someone gets to be in that circle or not, and if they, they're not showing up for you the way. And I mean, ghosting is such a prevalent thing, and it happens not just like we see it in dating a lot, but also in relationships, friendships that can happen as well, and it is really hurtful. And I think so I love this entire conversation about that and grieving and not taking it personally and being responsible. So I I've really enjoyed this part of it, which was not expected. So I I love that. Um, to answer the question, Margarita, that you had around balance and how you show up in community and leadership, I think what has come to me is like we talked about introvert, extrovert. We've talked about, um, giving, receiving, resting, doing, right? Like there's these dualities. I think one of the things that come up for me is the combination of learning and serving. Because a lot of us can fall into so much learning, and not stepping up to serve, right? And so I was actually listening to a sermon this morning by Joyce Meyer. If you follow her, she's like this firecracker woman who gives it to you straight. But she was saying how this woman was following her for years and listening to her sermons, and she was saying how like I don't know, there's something I can learn from Joyce. Maybe she's like gone off the rails. Like I just don't really have anything to learn anymore. And so she prayed about it, and she said the Holy Spirit told her that it's not that you don't have anything to learn, it's because you're full. Like you've been filling up and filling up and filling up, and now it's time to do something with that, right? With what you've been filling up with. And so I feel like as leaders, we get to not just, well, we talk about inhaling and exhaling, not just doing one thing, not just inhaling. We also get to balance that with exhaling, inhale, exhale, take, give, learn, serve, right? So I think there's a balance around that and how we get to show up in our communities.
That's great.
Yeah, I think knowledge only becomes wisdom when you activate it. And we activate it
Yes.
through servitude,
This is so good. And
It's so beautiful.
I feel like we can do another round of this stuff, but we're getting close to the top of the hour here, and I wanted to honor this last question because I think this is really that service, Million, that you're talking about being of service. You fill yourself up. Now it's time to give back. So for the so this goes to each of you, and maybe we can go in the order that we spoke. So if someone listening right now is struggling to find balance, what gentle reminder would you want them to take next? And would you love to leave what gentle reminder or next step would you like to leave with them as they journey home to themselves? And we'll start with you, Mel.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. So I have a signature practice that I teach my clients. I call it allowing the now. It's a simple mindfulness tool where you are just making the space for you to be exactly as you are. So noticing what you're thinking, noticing what your body is experiencing, notice what you're smelling, you're tasting, any of the emotions that are coming up, but really just being present for your experience without needing to change any of it, without needing to do anything about it. Even if your mind is racing, just noticing that your mind is racing. There's no need to be like, oh, quiet your mind like meditation. I got to bring it back. I got to bring it back. And everybody's so stressed out that they got a quiet mind. They can't quiet their mind, right? So I just have the biggest tool that I can leave people with is to just, even if it's just for 5 minutes a day, just take 5 minutes out of the day to become what I call willing to look within. In that willingness alone starts to create space within yourself just by you being willing to look. And as that willingness happens consistently, it's like these proverbial drops in the bucket. And so the more space you create within by this willingness to look, the more space that opens up in your environment, in your body, in your relationships, in every area of your life. And that's how you begin to transform every area of your life, is by starting within. So the simple tool is to just start with 5 minutes a day. If you're afraid to meet yourself, if you're scared of what you're going to find, just start with 1 minute or 2 minutes. It's not about the amount of time. Everything comes back to willingness. Are you willing to look? And once you become willing, everything shifts, but nobody can give you willingness.
Wow.
So good. My gosh. Gwen.
For me, it would be redefine who you are to reconnect with who you are. Like choose who you want to be. Choose how you want to show up every day. Every time when you are in a situation and you are triggered or activated, as Mel says, stop. Ask yourself, how do I want to show up? Who do I want to be in this specific moment? And when you start using that stop consciously on a daily basis, then you become the future self you want to be, because we all have an idea of who we want to be. Every one of us is like, if I had a choice, or if I had the money, or if I had the time, or if I could, then I would, right? But it's not about if I could, then I would. It's about a choice. It's just about the choice of who you want to become. And the one who you want to become is actually going back to who you are in essence. And with a lot of added value, because life gave you the knowledge, the inspiration, the connection, the experiences that made you you in this specific moment, and honor that, accept that. So stop, reconnect, and redefine on a daily basis.
Chills. So easy. Oh, man.
So good. So good. For me, I think it goes back to pausing. I think this is like a theme that I'm hearing, is pausing if there's an imbalance that we experience. And it can be in any area, right? Like health, for example, like there's an imbalance. Pause and ask, what is this trying to tell me? What is this trying to teach me? What am I supposed to learn from this? Because there is wisdom in the situation. There is something that what is happening is trying to get your attention for you to pause and learn and look deeper. And if we just go, if we kind of push it down, like, no, I got this, without actually reflecting and pausing and looking for the lesson, like looking for what is going back to health. Like if there's something health-wise, a pain, what is my hurt elbow trying to tell me? And pause and listen for that answer. It's going to come up. And then it's up to us to actually take the wisdom and do something with it. But I think listening and really connecting with what the message is for us is really important.
Love that.
So good. Claudia. Oh my gosh. This is so good.
Okay. I'm not going to talk about pausing. I think I'm going to go with create the environmental vision board. So create the space you want to live in. And I think it's Louise Hay. She's put up post-it notes everywhere with affirmations on, and I'm a post-it note queen. I do the same and then upgrade them. But yeah, take down the pictures. It's something that I tell clients all the time. If there's something there that makes you feel uncomfortable, remove it and put something else there. or nothing. There's nothing wrong with space, and that's another thing. Like, don't be afraid of the space. So create the environment that you want to see, and you can start small. You can start with your desk space, your bedside table, what is the last thing you see at night and the first thing you see in the morning. These are very, very powerful things. What is on your bedside table? Put there what you want to see. What is the last sentence you want to hear? Because we hear our own voice, and the first sentence you want to hear, and then build it into the rest of your living environment. That's your personal space and your sanctuary, and then you can expand that into your outer world. But to be honest, if you manage to do that in your local space, in your local personal community, I like to call it your home, it will ripple out into the rest of the world, because that will help create those inner shifts inside. So that's my takeaway.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
So amazing. Thank you, Mel. I know Mel needs to drop off. I just want to say thank you so much. It's been an honor to have you here. And I
Thank
will
you.
be offering
Thanks so much.
you. So good.
Thank you. Love
So
you
before
guys.
we close,
Appreciate you.
I just wanted to let everyone know that everyone here, the speakers, are going to share a free gift with you or a resource in some way to either go deeper with their work or support you on your journey coming home to you. And it'll be available in the comments or descriptions, depending on where you're watching this replay. But I just wanted to honor and thank everyone here again. The conversation, I feel, really was synergistic, and it got really interesting because we were all chiming in over, like over time, and we went over because of that. And I just think it's so important when you have this conversation. It just goes to show how important balance and harmony really is in life and creating the results that we want to see. So I just want to thank you so much for being so generous in your wisdom and with the knowledge that you've gained on your journey home to you. So as we close today's balance and harmony panel, one truth rises again and again. What happens around you is a mirror, always, of what's happening within you. When we pause, get present, and are willing to face the unprocessed emotions, fears, and judgments, and those limiting beliefs that we've carried, healing begins to unfold from the inside out. True freedom is found within, and it begins with you remembering that it's your birthright to thrive. When you give yourself permission to shift first, and when you honor your desires without apology. The clutter in your minds, in our homes, and in our relationships are reflections of the paradigms that we've been living by. But when you clear your space inside and out, you create the room for alignment, clarity, and divine opportunity. So harmony is not something outside of you to chase. Harmony is who you are. It's a way of being. It reveals itself in every choice, in every relationship, in every moment that you pause to check in and ask, does this fuel me or drain me? Or is it even truly about me? That awareness really creates space for response instead of reaction, for acceptance instead of resistance. We are reminded that emotions are energy in motion, that movement and expression allow healing to flow. That when we surrender and trust in God, we reconnect with who we truly are. And in that space, balance becomes less about illusion and harmony becomes your natural state. Remember, you are the common denominator in your life experiences. The relationships you attract, the opportunities you allow, the way you show up, they all reflect how you feel and believe about yourself. So when you choose clarity, choice, and commitment, when you date yourself, nurture your heart, and speak your truth, you begin to live as the masterpiece you were always designed to be. That's going to make me cry. If this conversation sparks something within you, if your heart cracked open just a little more today, maybe you felt seen, heard, or simply just not alone, I ask you, sisters, to please share this so that this information can go out to those and women in need, to remind them that they're not alone, that her voice does matter, and that healing is possible. And I want you to remember today You're exactly where you're meant to be. Until next time, sisters, keep shining, keep rising, keep coming home because you matter and you're enough exactly as you are. I am Margarita Rose, your host, coming home to you, Sparkcast. I'll see you next week. Same time, same Spark channel. I love you.
Love you. Thank you for having me.
Love you. Thank you so
Love
much.
you all. Appreciate you all. Lovely to meet you all.
Yes.
You as well.